We're live. Welcome, Joanne.
My first LinkedIn Live. Thank you, Laura, for making this happen. You are a rock star.
Yeah, this is so exciting. So, I am joined today by Joanne Fedayko, and she is the founder of Pathway to Silicon Valley, which I'll be participating in. Very exciting. And I'll give you a little download on Joanne. She is a ecosystem strategist and advocate for inclusive innovation. She's dedicated to bridging international ecosystems by connecting founders with high impact global networks. She is the founder of Connection Silicon Valley and Canadian Women's Network and dedicated to bridging these international ecosystems by connecting them with the VCs. She launched Pathways to Silicon Valley in 2018, and that's a 2-day immersion experience designed specifically for female founders to build meaningful networks to Silicon Valley on their path to growth. The next pathway is on June 2nd and 3rd, to which I will be a part of, along with another at least 12 or 13 women. So exciting. So, Joanne, did I get all that?
You did. It's actually the 3rd and 4th of June, but we kick off
yes,
in this cohort.
Yes, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And so just a quick bit of housekeeping there. If someone wanted to still join that June 3rd and 4th cohort, would they still have time?
Absolutely. We have a couple of spots left. Can I put something in the chat?
Yeah, you sure can. So you would want to do that in the LinkedIn event where you can put that in the chat. Or you can send it to, yeah. Nice.
Yeah. So and I'll also just send it to you in case, since I'm a newbie to LinkedIn Live, I'll send it to you in case it's
cool. Okay, yeah, I got it here. I'll send it in the chat on LinkedIn. That's awesome. So we're going to talk today about pathways to dollars and connecting with investors in Silicon Valley. And obviously you created this program because you thought it was important for Canadian founders, specifically female founders, to get connected with these US Silicon Valley VCs. So why did you found this program? How did you get started with this?
Yeah, so Canadian, living in Silicon Valley now since 1999. And I had the complete pleasure of running an organization called C100, which some might know of, and if they don't, they should look it up. Founded by Canadians here in the Bay Area to help connect entrepreneurs based in Canada with Silicon Valley, because what was happening at the time, this was pre-me, but as the story goes, Canadians are sitting across the table from each other doing business, didn't know that they were Canadian per se. We living here in Silicon Valley have easy access to so many people, so many depths of experiences, so much capital that's here. And they really saw that there was a difference with entrepreneurs, based in Canada, just looking to come for the first time to Silicon Valley. And so they're like, look, if we're just sitting across the table from each other, we could easily make introductions. We can easily help these entrepreneurs, kind of wayfind, if you will, and understand how to access Silicon Valley. And so that's why the C100 was started back in 2010. I had the good fortune of running that from 2014 to 16. And then when I left there, I had a couple of things that I wanted to do more of. And one of them was to support women entrepreneurs in particular. Because I'm a woman, I didn't think there's anything bigger reason than that. Just saw some really great women and wanted to, instead of the affinity group of just being Canadians, I thought, what about bringing Canadian women down? And I went, tapped the shoulder on 30 expat Canadian women that I knew and had met over the course of my time at C100 and asked them if they would show up, speak, attend, open up their networks for founders if I went and launched this program, and they said yes. And so that's how it was started.
I love that. And did the funding gap have anything to do with it as well, whereby now, even today in 2025, never mind 2010, only 2% of venture capital funds is allocated to women founders. So what was it like back then in 2010?
Surprisingly, that number, it wasn't in our forefront. It wasn't the thing that we were talking about, honestly. a couple of years later, it really started to come to the forefront and become part of the mainstream conversation. But I'd say it was just the general lack, not the specific lack, that we were aware of. And we said, we wanted to be able to do this. And we hear that the number's going down, right? From 2%, it's not increasing for funding
Yeah,
to female entrepreneurs or female founders.
which is quite
So,
troubling.
we have lots and lots of work to do. And things like Pathway to Silicon Valley, the Canadian Women's Network, and other amazing organizations, groups, accelerators, et cetera, that are out there focused on women, and not to exclude men from it, but just like this focus is still needed. We all actually have to come together and work jointly on this. So it's not about one single program. It's about all of us doing collectively what we can do, individually as well as together.
Agreed. And so, like, for myself, I've been a founder and, I've been interested in becoming an emerging venture capitalist. So I was really trying to explore the Canadian VC ecosystem. And after about a year, I pretty much know everyone, including all 7 female check writers. And in fact, the biggest VC in Canada is the government with the Business Development Bank of Canada. So all of this
Right.
to say, the Canadian VC ecosystem is extremely small. So for the average seed or Series A person fundraising, man or woman, you might shoot through this database very quickly and then wonder what your options are. So I think even more now than ever, it's important to be looking stateside and maybe put your elbows down for a sec.
Yes.
Because we're having an issue here. VC deals are down 21% in Canada, and pre-seed and seed funding have dropped to 2020 levels. There's been 0 exits in the last 1.5 years, which means that the capital is tied up. Would you say it's really necessary for Canadians to start looking south now for their funding?
Yes. I mean, for over 10 years now, that's been the storyline. Who's ever in power in Canada, I always hope they don't take away my Canadian passport. Because the goal is not to tell entrepreneurs from Canada to pick up everything, move to the US, and forget about Canada. Absolutely not.
Right.
It's just if you're building a global company, you need access to global networks, you need global customers, you need global capital. And the reality is, Canada is smaller than the US market, in
Yeah.
a lot of different, ways. But
By a
it's very
margin of about 10x.
yes. And there is less capital there. It is more conservative capital because there is less. That's there. The risk taking, the swinging for the fences, the huge amounts of capital, so you can play a little bit more, throw it in a lot more different buckets and opportunities. That's happening here, in the Bay Area, in Silicon Valley. And there's just really no place like it on the planet. Many are competing, and maybe one day we'll get there. Well, there'll be other Silicon Valleys, true Silicon Valleys in other parts of the world. But for the last number of decades and currently today, you just can't compete and compare to what's here. So if you don't start looking to the US first, you're just already behind. And,
Good point.
don't take my word for it. There's a lot of smarter, brighter, bigger, well-known people out there that have made these statements and claims on it. And it's no disrespect to the country of origin. It's just the opportunity that these founders need to take to grow their business to the vision that they have for their vision, for their business. So if they want to build a global, world dominating, game changing, billion-dollar unicorn, blah, blah, blah company, then, get to the Silicon Valley urgently is what I say.
Yeah, too sweet.
Yeah.
So like I'm ready to go. So what are the first steps a Canadian entrepreneur should take to start building real like networks in the Silicon Valley?
Yeah. Well, and what you're doing is a great start, right? Look for some opportunity that you can go and get somebody to help you, so a conference, some kind of event. It doesn't have to be big, but use something as your anchor that's going to get you there, that's going to help open up some doors and put you in some rooms. So Pathway is a 2-day program. You're going to meet 100 different people coming into the rooms over those 2 days. The thing about our event is that everyone that comes into the room knows that they're there to help you. They're not coming in just to speak and leave. We ask that everybody come in and open up other doors for you, meet with you again, be honest with you, upfront, honest, but friendly with their feedback. And I think coming into those kinds of rooms are really, really good first steps. Canadian Consulate has some programs that they run, the CTA that's down here. Another organization that I co-founded in life sciences called CELS does something for Canadian entrepreneurs within the life sciences sector. The government does different trade missions. Sometimes different groups in different provinces do little trade missions as well. But if not any one of those, SaaStr, TechCrunch, Startup Grind, industry specific conferences. And then from there, then you start, you reach out to who you know, right? Who'd you go to school with? Look to the expat Canadians, look to your affinity group out there, accelerators that you were in. If you're not connected with every mentor that's in an accelerator program that you were in, then you just missing out on a huge opportunity there. So, and ask people for, 15 minutes, look at whom they know, be thoughtful. We could do a whole session on how you approach, people cold and look for introductions and whatnot. But being able to be specific, come down, know who you want to meet here, ask people for help with those. It's a great way. And honestly, it's kind of the only way. People do things for people they know, like, and trust. So you've got to start building those networks early on so you can just really build and nurture a network down here that will grow with your company as your company grows. Long answer to a short question. Sorry, Laura.
Well, that leads me to my next question. So I am a LinkedIn fanatic, and I'm such a desk jockey. If I could just do everything from my desk, that would be great. But it seems that may not be the case. Would you say it's possible to start building real relationships and a network in Silicon Valley from your desk, on LinkedIn, or is this space one that really necessitates some degree of FaceTime?
Now that we're post-pandemic, we are back to in-person. You can start conversations for sure from your desk and doing this over video, but you have to get into market, whatever market that is. You've got to be in front of your customer where that capital is. And one of the biggest reasons to come here is just that there's so much here for you to take advantage of, that you can have a phone call with somebody, maybe 10 in a day, but it's very different than walking into a room where there's 50 people. And the next night or the next hour, walking into another room with another 25 or 50 people. One speaker that we had for our life science showcase a couple of years ago from Silicon Valley Bank called it coffee shop bumping. You can just go anywhere here all the time and be meeting VCs and executives and mentors and people that maybe on their LinkedIn profile don't look like they're anybody. But man, the network that they have, who they live beside, the programs that they've been involved with is tremendous. And so it's that richness that you get that's way beyond a 30-minute Zoom call. Yes.
I agree. It's that randomness of who's in the room that was not on your radar.
Yes.
And a lot of people are, especially investors, I find they just get bombarded with unsolicited messages from founders that have an idea on a napkin. For every 100 ideas that they're pitched, one is really fundable, if that. Yeah. So maybe it's more like 1,000 to 1 ratio. So oftentimes, they are anti-LinkedIn. I've heard some anti-LinkedIn sentiment from some investors because they're it's just, it's hell on earth. And they'd rather sort of a formal introduction, or at least get to know you FaceTime and have it be a two-way street. Just have a conversation and not bring that neediness. Hi, I'm only talking to you because you have money. Please talk to me, right?
And I need it right now.
Yeah, and I want it now. And no, I cannot answer your very fair questions about it. So from that perspective, how do you not approach VCs when you're in the room with them? What are
Well,
some no-goes? What kind of train
yeah.
wreck situations have you borne witness to?
The high, I'm raising money. Can I have a meeting with you, or do you have money for me? I don't know anybody really does that, but what they don't do is really recognize that this is a long-term relationship. And before you get to the ask, you have to, know, like, trust somebody. And then becomes the invest or refer or recommend piece of it. So everybody kind of jumps to the, hi, I'm looking for money. Here's my pitch. These investors don't know you yet. They don't
Mhm.
trust you. You shouldn't trust them either. They don't know if they like you or not. So many investors will invest in, I mean, think about this to get it right. Like a level C, a grade C type of like product with a grade A founder. They won't invest in sort of like a grade A product and a grade C founder. It's all about that relationship, right? So you've got to be able to connect with them. We always say build that relationship. It's a long game, 6 to 9 months, a year at least, kind of thing. Sure, stuff happens like shorter than that, but everybody's busy. Nothing's going to go according to a founder's timeline. That's what they have to realize. Just because you're going to run out of money in 3 months, that is not the VC's problem. So you got to be better at planning that, and therefore coming into those rooms and just recognizing you've got a sales cycle here with that funding to do. So you've got to put them in top of funnel. You've got to nurture them. You've got to send them updates. They got to be with you on that journey. You've got to show up in different ways for them with your newsletter, investor update. You got to be online and be visible. You got to be in some rooms with them. Maybe you got to send them something just like out of the blue. Hey, it was great to like meet you at this event 2 months ago. I noticed you were drinking that like great scotch. Well, I just had like a really fantastic scotch the other night, and I thought you'd really like this brand. I thought I'd share it with you. Like, do random acts of kindness, show that you were listening to them. If you see that they're on the stage somewhere, watch it, comment on that on social media with them, send them a message, say, you know what, I saw that. You said this, it really resonated with me. I went back and implemented it with my team. Like, that's relationship building. That's getting to know somebody, that's nurturing. And that is what ultimately is the right path to be able to go and, get money from VCs.
Those
Certainly.
are some incredible tips on how to nurture your investor funnel, like incredible tips. I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of just engaging with their content, asking thoughtful questions, giving them tips and showing that you share some of the same interests. And you're
Yeah.
definitely speaking my language. I'm always harping on the know, like, trust formula. You have to show up, people have to know you exist. And then you have to keep showing up and peeling off layers of who you are and what your company does. But like, I think really people, like, if you had to say that like a VC cares more about the product or the founder, obviously each VC varies, but I think it's at the very least equal and possibly more so founder than product, because the product does fluctuate.
It's 100% founder.
Mhm.
Because and investors know that founder idea and that product will likely have some pivots along the way, whatever stage they sort of get in with them. And so they're betting on the founder, and they got to know that founder is coachable, mentorable. It's going to be able to pivot. It's a good leader, or again, we'll take some coaching to be a good leader. And that's what they index on. And then it's like that product, like I said, it could be kind of a class C product idea, but they bet on that founder, and they'll work with that founder, therefore, to be like, okay, let's get this class C product now to like a class A with you. Yeah.
So I noticed that some of the terminology is a little bit different in terms of like talking about your startup here or pitching VCs here versus the United States. And I also noticed that American founders kind of have bigger, ballsier claims, or TAMs or SOMs or whatever it is, right? Valuations, everything seems bigger in Texas, as they say. So Are there any like cultural or communication differences Canadian founders should be aware of when they're going to pitch US investors?
Yeah, and I'll say that this is not just for, Canadian entrepreneurs. I think if you're from Iowa, it might be the same thing. We're just sort of unique here, in the sense of there's been so much capital here. We've been first movers. We're first adopters of everything. We bet on risk. We index on risk. That's what VCs are looking for, right? And anybody here, not just VCs. I think it's the ethos of here. So that has a very different mindset than other parts of the world. And that's what's so attractive about being here. And what we see is when entrepreneurs come here and they're pitching their idea, and we will, I know most about Canada after working with Canadian entrepreneurs for 10 years, is that entrepreneurs will come and say what they're going to do. My vision is to do this. And there's a growth pattern to it. It's sort of, first step and second step. And sometimes this drives me nuts. It might be like, well, I'm going to launch in the, Edmonton, and then I'm going to go to the prairies, and I'm going to go across Canada, and then I'll go to the US. And that goes back to one of the very first questions we talked about. It's like this comfort of their knowing of this is what I'm going to do, this slow process to get there. They also, with that, just think that they're not ready yet. And they want to be honest with where they're at. Sometimes too honest. Like, here's my revenue I'm going to get in year one. Yeah. And also, but the difference is that here, people coming here, the VCs want to see the really outlandish number. Now, not stupid. Don't lie in that big bad sense, but be ballsy. Say, you know what, with the right capital, with the team, if all the things go right, I'm going to be here, this is my step up. This is, whatever here means, not just always financials, right? With that, they want to see big vision. They want to see confidence in that vision. They want to see that you've got, again, you're swinging for the fences, as we say, that you've got that big global aspiration. These guys are in it to make money. That's what you have to convey to them. How are you going to make them money? It's not like this nice little producty thing. It's going to do good in the world. Yes, maybe. But it's they're looking at, I need a 10, 20x return on this thing. Are you going to be the one? So if you're going in with conservative numbers, with conservative approach, then they're going to be that's a nice lifestyle business. You might get to be a couple of million in revenue, but that's not a venture backable business. So
right.
I always tell Canadian entrepreneurs, you got to be uncomfortable when you're pitching here, and you'll get to a comfort point, and you'll still hopefully retain that Canadian niceism. So you're not looking like an asshole or too much ego with it. But the difference between being confident and having too much ego. So that's where a big difference is for entrepreneurs, is you got to really show them the big, big, big opportunity. And how come, you're going to be the one that's best suited to do that, and underlying all that, how are you going to make them a shit ton of money?
That's what's up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. A shit ton is the technical term for those that haven't become familiar with US investor logic. And this is the sort of advice I give founders all the time when they're like, oh, we hope to reach whatever. I'm like, no. You need to reverse engineer it from 100 million ARR. What's it going to take for you to get to 100 million ARR, if possible, right? If not possible, then rethink your whole business plan, or don't chase venture money and look at private equity or whatever, right? Are you scalable to that degree? And if you're not scalable to that degree, don't bark up the VC tree, because that's really all they care about. But if you are saying that you can scale to this size, you need to say, okay, 100 million ARR. How long will it take you to get there? How many customers would you need, or sales would you need to get to that point? Because that's the golden number. And if you're going to say it's going to take 8 years with these partnerships and this kind of traction and your money, then that's sellable.
Mm-hmm. And that's also why, again, there's so much money. These funds are so large here. They're making a ton of bets, right? As many as they can, not anywhere near the number of pitches that they see. But if founders don't understand venture economics, then they're going to be positioning themselves incorrectly, right? They have to understand whether or not they have something that is venture backable, is of interest, does follow along. There's, Angel from Jason Calacanis is a great book, I think. Venture Deals from Brad Feld, great books to listen and read to out there, like really understand what it is that the VCs are looking for. It's the model. It's not them personally. It's the model, venture model that they're in and they're needing to follow. And that's also a difference with Canadian investors is there's just a lot smaller fund size, less pool of capital, can't make as many bets. Therefore, they need to de-risk that company. That company needs to be de-risked a lot more than a US VC, Silicon Valley VC often does with it. So it's just very different, which is like creates for longer timelines. I hear so often in Canada, it's like, it's been 9 months and I'm pretty sure that they're going to invest in me, but I haven't heard yet. You can't do that. That kills entrepreneurs waiting that long, right? You're just holding on. It's got to be quick. And not that every Silicon Valley investor is, turning things over in 3 weeks, but it's a lot quicker to a yes or a no here. And in particular to a no, which founders need.
God, yes. So there's a saying that I think you said it. A Canadian VC will take 9 months to give you a no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So yeah, no one's got time for that. And I've seen founders like overly banking on the word of a VC, but like, hey, they're at their whim of their LPs, they're at the whim of their exits, they're at the whim of their other partners. Like, it is not a unilateral decision, and they do have the right to renege, of course, right? If time shows up differently, and if you're not hitting your own targets, or if you're not showing up for them in a way that they're comfortable with. So I guess that's why you need such a large pool, like that top of funnel. Like, you need a solid funnel.
And you need the right, investors in that funnel as well. Too often I see people like, yep, B2B SaaS, great, they're a great fit. And it's like, you don't know that. And there's not a ton of information always very explicit on every VC website or fund out there. So therefore you have to do some research and looking, who else have they invested in? Are their investments or portfolio looking like yours? Is it the right stage and size? Have they already invested in something that is too similar to yours? Would they take another bet on something? Like, you still got to do research. There's great usage now with ChatGPT, and there's new tools that are coming out there leveraging AI to help entrepreneurs, but still you've got to really do some work on who those target investors are that will fit with who you are, and be realistic about that, for sure. Yeah.
So how would you say that a Canadian or any startup founder could really stand out when competing against all these other US startups? Like, what would make them really sort of sticky, memorable?
Bring maple syrup.
Noted.
Canadian whiskey. Just be bold. Like, it's not really where you're about. It's just, are you selling that big vision? Do you know your product, your competitive landscape? You gotta know more than that VC does. I've seen and witnessed too often where the VC knows more about that company's competitive landscape than they do as the founder. Because I say the world comes to Silicon Valley to pitch, right? They see so much. We see so much here. So you've got to know what's happening in other parts of the world to know how you're going to differentiate and what's your unique value proposition against that, why you're going to win with that. So it's less about be less Canadian and all that, but just really understand, know the room. The room here is big, bold, strong vision, global world domination. Confidence with that, and like having an understanding of how that's going to unfold. They do not expect you to get it right. That's what they're there for. They're not just giving you capital. They should also be giving you expertise, deep expertise that they have, support for you as you're growing as a leader, but support as you need it for your company as well, including next rounds of funding. They should be a great resource for you when you're doing your next round of funding.
Absolutely. And
Daphne.
Daphne concurs. Bring the maple syrup. Okay, Canadian Club and maple syrup it is.
Yeah.
Um,
And some Tim Hortons. Maybe some Tim Hortons coffee. No.
girl knows.
Let's
just
let
brown and water.
Starbucks is in my Tim Hortons coffee, just so you cup.
Nice. That's what's up.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, what do you recommend is like the right approach to identify the investors and stage? Like, is there a resource hub, or is it more about like qualifying them? Like before you start pitching at them, be like, hey, like ask them questions like what stage do you invest in, or like what kind of startups are you interested in?
So first, you got to do your research. I'll pull up a great tool for that if people aren't on Signal, signal.nfx.com. It's a great free resource.
You said signal.nfx?
Yeah, .com. NFX is a very incredible, well-known fund started by 3 founders who, if I'm correct with my memory, have like 10 unicorn valuations of their company between the 3 of them. Google, ChatGPT nowadays, like look at your kind of competitors or who's done something similar, who's funded them. There's a great email that I get every Monday in my inbox, and I can forward it to you as well, that has all of the investments made within like a 300-mile radius of the Bay Area.
Nice.
And it lists out, here's the B2B, here's the enterprise, here's the healthcare, and you can see who's funded at what amount and then who funded it. You just have to do a lot of work for this. Like it has to be a part-time job for founders to come up with that list. And you as the founder has to look at that fund. You can't outsource this and say, tell me if these are good funds or not. Like, you know your product the best, you know the landscape, you know how you would differentiate from others out there. So you've got to look and see, are they investing at the stage, the size that I'm at, making sure they're investing if geography wise, check size. And then look at like who they are as a fund, as like partners in it. Cause it's a 10-year marriage kind of thing. So are these the right type of people that I want to be around as well? So really we call it aligned investors, right? You come up with that list and then you start leveraging people that going to events and trying to find the rooms for them. Cold outreach does work. It's not like it hasn't. But the best way into a VC is through a portfolio company. So smart founders will look at the fund and go, let's pick on NFX as I really think that they're really aligned with me. I'm going to go look at all of their portfolio companies and I'm going to reach out to some of those founders and strike up a relationship with them. Because founders will usually take meetings with other founders, right? They've been there. They know that experience of growing their business. Laura, I can hear you kind of moving maybe your mouse or something.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, just hearing a bit of background noise. But founders will take those calls because they've been there before, build that relationship, and then the best would be that they introduce you. Second best is somebody that knows them and has connection to them, do a warm introduction to get to them. And then third is go it on your own. And but that's where social media, digital profile, consistent presence out there is very important. So that maybe you're engaging with them, liking their stuff on LinkedIn, commenting, etc. But also you're visible too out there, so that when they look you up and they see, oh, okay, yeah, they're speaking, they're a thought leader on this, they've got authority on the topic, they're at different events, like, they're being respectful in their LinkedIn posts and stuff, again, they need to kind of know and like what they're seeing out there.
Yeah. I guess, would PitchBook be useful as well?
It's just so expensive. So it's a great resource to go get a data dump. But Canadian consulates sometimes have licenses, so do accelerator programs. So if you can get somebody that has a license, you give them a criteria. It doesn't take more than 10 minutes, I think, to go pull that criteria and download it. It's like a $25,000 license. So it's inaccessible for,
Ouch.
yeah.
Okay.
Crunchbase is a lot like it's $500 for the year. They also have a really good newsletter that's sent out. So kind of watch for things like that. NFX is free. Signal is free. So that's really good. There's another thing called Founders Suite that I've used. It's basically like the CRM for fundraising, kind of like the HubSpot of. And so you can do a narrowing down of your search by geography, by stage, et cetera, et cetera. You have the different funnels for it. You can also invite your advisors into Founders Suite. So that, so if I'm an advisor to a company, I could go in and go like, oh, I know this investor, and this investor, create my own little like list of companies, investors that I'll go after. I can email from Founders Suite. I can send decks from there. And on the topic of decks, use BriefLink is one I think that NFX created, or DocuSend, the other one, something that is tracking who's opening up your deck, how long they're spending on the slides. And that gives you good intel. You're on mute. Yep.
I'm finding my mouse again. So I was just updating with some of the things you mentioned, Founder Suite, NFX, just to recap for anyone that trying to keep up. And you mentioned BriefLink for decks. And I love how granular that some people are getting really with like using these data insights to find out where people are lingering in the deck.
Yeah.
And I think decks is an important topic of conversation as well, because before decks were king, now we're seeing that some founders are raising serious money, like Perplexity raised with a demo. And it was like a Twitter demo and how they were able to like index Twitter. And so what do you think is most important? Do VCs want to sit through a deck pitch presentation, or are some of them more open to a conversation in general?
Okay, I've got a lot to say about this. So on the deck topic, one, don't make it 30 pages, people. 12 to 15.
Yeah. 10.
Yeah, like there is an art to it. Most VCs really like that. Everybody's unique and different. Whenever you get in front of a VC, the first question you should ask is like, hey, I've got a 10-minute presentation and, you can ask me questions throughout, or we can talk at the end. Does that work for you? They might say, great, that's awesome. They say, you know what, close that. Just tell me your story, right? So you want to go in the dialogue that they feel comfortable with it, but be prepared otherwise for it. In your deck, say the most fucking impressive thing up front. Founders always get this wrong. They'll wait till the very end and then they'll put their $2 million in revenue. And the whole deck was like lackluster and it talked on too long. There was too much text, blah, blah, blah. And you've lost the reader, the listener, within the first like couple of minutes max on it. Yeah. So you've got to put impressive things in an email that you send out. Keep it short. You got to put the most impressive things up front, capture their attention. If you put that kind of stuff in front, I've been featured in Vogue, the Kardashians, like blah, 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 whatever it is, we've got these 3 enterprise customers. We've got 2-year deals with them. Then people pay attention for the rest of the time that you're speaking with them and interacting. So do that. Keep the deck as short as possible. Remember, your only goal is to get the next meeting. You're not going to walk away with the check. So, and as women, we tend to want to talk a lot. We're very good at it. So, you got to condense it down. Give them something of interest, right? Have one point for each slide. I want to get this across to my VC founder, whoever I'm pitching to at that moment. And then I want them to be able to ask questions, because that's where the dialogue and the juicy part gets, right? So don't boil the ocean with too much in it. And go to other people to test out your pitch instead of going to VCs. Founders are really, really, really great resources to go to, especially ones that have raised capital. They've pitched 100 times already. They've gotten the checks. They can give you some really good insights as to hey, you lost me, man, or I don't understand this, or gosh, you verbal diarrhea for too long on this. They don't have time, or wow, nailed it. Totally got it. Right. So use different resources to practice your pitch before you ever get in front of VCs. The real deal. Never go after tier 1 VCs first. Always go after tier 2 or tier 3. Get them out of your system, kind of figure out the kinks. Keep taking notes after every single meeting. Use Fathom or some kind of, I love Fathom, video recording system. Take all the notes, capture that, put it into a sheet, have, again, ChatGPT keep track of this for you to say, I want to know all the things that the VC asked about, where they were unsure about things that they liked, and compile that and see where there's themes, right? What am I missing? What am I not speaking clearly about? Where do they get confused? Where are they hooked up? I think this is so clear, but yet we end up talking for 10 minutes every time I'm on a VC pitch about this one thing. Clarify it, figure that out. We're so lucky with AI now that we can do this so much faster than we did before. Like I said, it's a sales process. There is a playbook for it. Most founders miss it. They just think they don't have time to fundraise. They don't have time to research. They don't have time to do all the follow-up. And that's the...
And you don't have money to get to the next stage, I guess, if you don't have time for those things. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that it takes a very studious and data-driven approach to hone this down and do take advantage of these AI tools, do take diligent notes. I've been taking no shortage of notes as we've been talking. So however you do your notes, I mean, I like to do pen and paper, but then I would still type those up later, most likely, or you can even take a picture of the page these days and get that going. So I guess I have one final wind down question for you.
I'm going to say
that is,
sorry, Laura, record everything and use that, whether that's a video filter, whether using voice memo on your phone, other tools that are out there to take the picture. I write notes too, but they stay here mostly. And so we got to get that extracted out and use it. Sorry, last question.
Awesome. I guess for me, what should I do to prepare? And I know you've mentioned a bunch of things right now, right? Do my diligence, but so let's say it's crunch time. I have 10 days to prepare for 5 formal investor meetings, maybe 5 to 10 formal investor meetings, and then another 20 informal pitches while I'm at a dinner party. What is the best use of my time in the next 10 days to prepare?
Okay, so with Pathway, we do a couple different things. One of them is just we work with an executive coach with our founders, figuring out what you really want to get out of this trip. Take a little time with yourself, with your coffee or your whiskey, whatever it is, and just be okay, understand you're not going to walk out with the check. Let's be clear about that. Some people do. That has happened, but that's really not the goal. The goal is to come here, really understand the lay of the land, get a good foundation of a network for you that you can build off of. Being clear on what your objective is kind of that starting point for it. Do some research, right? Who are those 20 VCs that you think are aligned within all the scope that we talked about? We'll be able to try to facilitate some of those connection points and introductions or people coming in the room. But when you're in the room, any room, talking to whomever, you get to ask for whatever you want from them. Be clear on what you're asking. If people are going to ask you, how can I help you? You better have an answer.
I'm
actually really looking forward to, I'm really trying to meet with NFX because I think that they're the top VC for me for these 3 reasons. Ask everybody. Really, I'm looking for a mentor that's done a B2B marketplace before and has raised Series A, somebody that has been in the retail CPG space, however it is, that's what I'm looking for. I really want to get into Salesforce. So know what your asks are and don't be shy about saying it. I got founders that have come before that are I don't know if this is really a venture backable business or if I really have 5 more years in me for this. So I really need to walk away knowing whether or not I build on this or I have to pivot or do something. I want some real honest feedback. So be clear and ask for that. Take time on your calendar after the event. Block off a couple of days so you can just do all the follow-up. You're going to do some of that on the plane. You know, I always say within 24 hours, you should be replying to people saying thank you. When you meet people anywhere, this is my tips for LinkedIn. You got like the QR code on your phone and whatnot. Make sure that they reach out to you and they send you a connection request. Why? Because then you have their information and you can accept them. If you do it the other way around, it might sit in their like inbox forever before they accept you.
Yeah,
If you
that's
do
an
have,
important directional point. Yes.
yeah, when they do, so most will just click connect and send you it without a custom message, which I am vehemently against, but people do it. I hope you never do it. If you ever send an invite to somebody on LinkedIn, I hope you always, always, always put a personalized message. The reason is you want to be able to connect how you know them, where you met them. So for example, Laura, you're at an event, like you're at our Pathway reception, you ran into somebody super quick. You're like, hey, here's my LinkedIn. They send it to you, they connect. You say, hey, Bob, it was great to meet you at the Pathway reception. I really look forward to talking to you further. Because it might be 3 months, 3 years before that actually connection happens. Or in 2 years' time, you might be like, oh gosh, look, I know Bob from NFX. How do I know him? Oh, great. I can refer to that. So get custom with them, get in conversation with them, do all the follow-up with them, even if there's nothing to follow up on. Great to meet you. I'm going to be back in San Francisco, next time, whenever that is. Hopefully you have another trip planned. I think you got to come frequently when you're coming to Silicon Valley. But just stay in touch, build that relationship. If they promise you something, follow up with them. Hey, you said you could introduce me to like these 3 funds. You said you knew somebody at Salesforce. You said you had like a woman entrepreneur that would be a great mentor for me. Follow up with them, say thank you, offer them help. What can I do for you? And at minimum, every founder has a network of incredible founders, of really smart, audacious people out there that they know building awesome things in the world. I see, I'm in climate, you're in a climate investor. Do you want more great climate companies? I can introduce you to a ton, right? You want some more Canadians, some more females, some more Israelis, some more, AI, cyber, whatever it is. I can introduce you to some of those. That's like table stakes. Most will say that they're here to support you and they don't want anything from or need anything from you, but it's always great to offer.
I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you definitely want to make sure that you're not just a taker, but you're trying to offer value. And I think for me, what I hope everyone got so much out of this conversation. I know I got a ton out of it, but for me, I think the biggest thing is, just making sure that you're not caught with your pants down when it comes to competitor landscape, and being able to even have some teaching moments for them, right? Because information is the new currency. Like if you don't have money, at least have the information, have a lot of it, and have it where you can pull it from memory easily and just be well versed in your space.
Yeah, you need to be able to counter. Oh, yeah, I know them very well. Here's where we're different. Here's how we're better. Here's why we are the ones to bet on over them. Or here's why we'd partner with them. They'd be actually a great collaborator with us. Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, they're not the same, actually. They're different, but it would be great if we partnered with them. So yeah, just that like nice handoff. So
yeah.
Joanne, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm sure that everyone loved it, and I can't wait to meet you.
Thank you. I'm so excited as well. I appreciate you making this happen. A true amazing founder who, when we spoke, you're like, let's get this done, girlfriend. And we did it. I love that.
Yeah, show that can-do attitude. And of course, there's bumps along the way, right? But don't sweat the small stuff. Just keep moving.
True story. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
See you.